about this 401. This is the most powerful technique I know, which I call Trojaning, and other people call this attack repackaging. What we're going to do is we're going to take the Progressive Insurance app and we're going to modify it to steal passwords. So you have to have a Windows or Mac host, and you have to have, I might need a Debian guest. I might be able to do it on my Mac. I'm going to need ADB, jar signer, and JDK. I think I might have all that on my Mac. Let me see. I may not need a Debian machine. Let's get a command line and see if I have jar signer. I do have jar signer. Then I think I'm fine. I don't think I need that Debian machine. I think it's enough to have my Android emulator and my Mac OS host here with these tools on it. I think I'll be fine. So now I need to get APK tool though. And I'm not very sure that APK tool is going to run on the Mac. Let me see, APK tool. Ooh, I have APK tool on here. Okay, good. Then I don't need the Debian machine. Now, I don't know how I got it on here. Let me just try this. Brew, install, APK tool. That's probably how I got it. Brew is the package manager for the Mac. It's like APT. And yes, APK tool is available this way, so it's that easy to get. You do have to download Brew, but you can Google for that. Once you've got Brew on your Mac, you can install Mac applications just like you do it on Linux. And some of them work and some of them don't, because the Mac OS is Unix and it has some funny libraries that are different, but most things work. And I think we're going to find, and see, here it is putting on the right version of OpenJDK and APK tool, but anyway, it's working. So I wouldn't argue with it. I already had it, but by doing this, I'm updating it. So now I think I don't need a Debian machine. You could use a Debian machine, but you would have to get it into bridged mode to see your Android, and you also have to get your Android emulator in bridged mode. So while that's happening, all right, we're going to modify it. I'm going to need an emulator, but not for a while yet. We're just going to, all right, I'm going to download the Progressive app. All right, so I'll just let this thing finish. And I don't think I'm going to need JDX. Oh, I might. Well, I used it here, but I don't think I need to use it in this project, so I'm going to close it. That should do it. Yeah, all right. Let me get rid of this. All right. And it's still installing stuff that came with APK tool. All right. I'll check for comments while all that is going on. Good, nothing new, okay. All right. It is a good idea to update APK tool if you want to analyze modern apps. But we're usually going to do an old app, so it doesn't really matter. All right, so here I am in downloads. I'm going to make a dir 128 demo and go in there. All right, just so I got a nice clean directory to work in. All right. Now, find my instructions, which are here. Okay, so now I'm going to get the app. I'm getting an old version of an app I just saved on my website, just so you're working with this. Many of these techniques work on modern apps, but to make it so the project doesn't drive everybody nuts, I'm having you work on this specific old version so the line numbers and everything will be the same. All right, now we're going to disassemble that app, which is APK tool, D to disassemble the app, and then we have a couple other things here, minus F and minus R. The name of this thing is base.apk. I think what's going on here is the minus R tells it not to try to unpack the resources, and I forget what the minus F does. But this lets us see the Smalley code, and it doesn't molest other things like images and stuff that are in there, which turns out to be much better, so you can rebuild it. APKD is all you need, but a lot of apps have extra features that APK tool cannot successfully take apart and put back together. This way, it just copied assets and libraries without trying to disassemble them. So we're not going to change anything in the assets or the libraries. We're only going to change the Smalley code. All right, and now we can explore it. Now you can you can view it here. If I do ls minus L, I'll see I now have, here's my original APK file. That's the Android app. This is a directory named base. If I go in there and then do ls minus L, you see I have the Android manifest that we've been looking at, and I have a directory called metainf, which is going to contain the signing certificate, and I've got directories containing assets, lib, original, and then I have some directories containing Smalley. These are the code I can modify. And here you see a graphical description, which I did, of course, with JADX GUI. This is what the app looks like. You have the libraries and assets and stuff, which we're not going to tamper with, and then you have Smalley, and this is code we're going to mess with. And down here you can see there's some code that was written by Google and by PayPal and stuff, and then there's code written by Progressive itself. And as usual, that's the code we want, because that's written by the end developer, who is most likely to be making mistakes and also handling things we care about, like credit card numbers and passwords. So we're going to I want to steal the password from this app. So all I got to do is look for lines containing login and password. And here's an easy way to do it. I'm going to go back up to where I started. Doesn't really matter. And now this is going to grep, doing recursive grep, looking for the word login. So if I do a grep for login, minus R dot. This is something I do all the time. This will look for the word login in the current, all files in the current directory and all subfolders. So it finds a lot of things that contain the word login. And there's too many of them, so I'm going to change it in two ways. The first thing I want to do is add an I here, so it will be case insensitive. So it's going to accept any capital letters here or lowercase letters. And the next thing I want to do is when you find a line containing login, I want that line to also contain password. And so I'm going to look for password here. And that should lower the number of hits. Whoops, I forgot the word grep. Grep here. And there are other ways to do this, like if you understand regular expressions, but I'm a wimp, I do it the easy way, with two separate greps. So now I find lines that contain both login and password, and there's really only a few of them. So these are lines that handle the password. So now they're wrapping in an irritating way. So if you want to stop that, you use less minus S. Pipe less minus capital S will not wrap around. There they are. Now I can more easily see that even though I found several lines, they're only included in a few methods. I have something called login view model, something called activity login binding, some kind of static data, and then login request.smalley. So you can see there's only a few files that are used. And the most interesting one I thought was login request, but apparently I've decided the good one is login view model. So let's take a look at that. Here's login view model. So I want to analyze that, and I'm just going to use Nano, the typical editor. So I'm going to get this ridiculous long path and copy it. That's the file that I think contains the passwords to mess with it. So I'm going to do Nano here. All right, and there we are. Now I can see various things in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for login online account parentheses. I did it by just hunting through before, and this is to make it easier for you. Control W searches for a string, and that's, whoops, okay, got to do, whoops. I'm just going to go up, escape, backslash, you move to the top. All right, annoying. I'm going to close it, reopen it. I want to get back to the top, and I hit Control V, which is not paste, it's moved down a page. I want to do Control W, and then I'm going to do right click, Command V, there we are. So this is login online account parentheses. So I look for that, and I end up here, and I think I want to look for it a second time. Yep, I want to find the second one of these to get the code I want to mess with. So I'm going to do another Control W, where is, which is search, and just enter. And now I have found the second occurrence, which is the private method named login online account. And this is what I want. Yes. Now, we are going to modify this code. This is Smalley code, which is compiled Java code. And the way it works is there are a total of 16 variables available in the virtual machine, the Java virtual machine. And every method starts with a locals command that tells it how many variables you're going to use. Now, I want to add another variable, so I need to increase this number. So I'm going to increase the locals to 6. It starts counting at 0, so that is going to make it possible for me to use a variable called variable 5, which is not used by the app. So I change it to local 6. Now I'm going to add this code below line 434, and I'll explain it. So if I scroll down, there are line numbers here which refer to line numbers in the original Java code. And if you look down here, here's line 434. I want to put this after the check cast statement. Okay, you can read this code. It's not as easy to read as Java, but it's pretty easy. So here we go. It gets an object, makes a login request. Now it gets an object here and moves it into a v2, a variable, and calls it a string. And this will tell me somewhere what this thing is. This one is password text, and this one is username text. So it's really pretty easy. Here's the username. The username ends up in variable 2. The password ends up in variable 3. And variable 2 is a string, and variable 3 is a string. So this is pretty easy. I found the code that handles the password. So after I check cast v3, then I can add my Trojan code. So I go down here and I paste in the stuff, and this is code I learned just from hacking forums and stuff. This is the way you steal a password and put it in the log. I define a variable 5, which has the message, the label, and now I put it in the log with this, Android Utilities log. And so it's going to make 2 log entries, one containing the password, the username, and one containing the password. So I'm making a modified app that steals data. Now I just save this with Control X, Y, Enter. Now I have source code, and now I have to repackage the app. You use APKD to decompile an app. You use APKB to build an app. So I'm in here, I do APK tool, B base, and that will gather all the stuff it finds in that directory and pack it all up into a zip file to make a fresh APK. And it's going to work because all I did was take apart the Smalley and put the Smalley back in. I did not attempt to handle the libraries or resources, which would be more difficult. I just left them untouched because all I wanted to change was the Smalley code that Progressive Insurance wrote. Okay, now I've made an app. Here it is, base dist base.apk. So if I do an ls of base dist, you'll see there's a file there called base.apk. Now I could try installing that on my phone. So if I go to downloads, 128 demo, base dist, there's the APK. Now, there's going to be a few problems. Let me get a phone going. I don't even have one going. So let me just start Android Studio. And run one of my phones. All right. I don't think it matters which phone I'm using or anything. All right. Daemon started successfully. Yep, okay, there's a phone. Looks like it needs a restart. I'll just do a cold boot. Yeah, it was somehow stuck in some bad condition. Let's try cold boot. All right. And I don't think it matters what version of Android I have or anything. Now, if I already had the Progressive Insurance app on here, it wouldn't accept this as an upgrade. But now we're going to have a different problem, and let's see what happens. If I take this APK and I try to put it on the phone, it's going to tell me No certificates. This app is not signed. You cannot install any apps that are not signed. However, you don't need to go get a public certificate. You can sign it with a self-generated certificate. So that's a rule of Android. Every app must be signed. So you have to sign it, and you do it, use KeyTool, which is part of the Java development kit. This will generate a key. And I'm just making a generic RSA key. That's all it is. So I generate a key. Now it asks me for a password. I'll just use password. Now it's going to ask me for the name of the developer and stuff. I could lie and claim to be Progressive Insurance. It doesn't verify this information at all. I'm just going to accept unknown for everything. And you have to put yes at the end. So now it's generated an RSA certificate, 2048 bits. Now I have to perform the signing operation, and that is here, jar signer. And that's going to sign it. And I have to give it that password. And there it goes, signing it. It's sort of silly, pointless activity. I'm signing it with a fake certificate I just made, but this is the real certificates are used. They do not use public certificates. So now that APK is a little bit bigger, and it's signed, and now I should be able to install it on a phone. Drag and drop. Installing. And it didn't complain, so I think it's on the phone. If I drag this up from the bottom, there should be Progressive on here somewhere. There it is, Progressive Insurance with the Progressive logo. All the images and everything will look the same because I didn't change them. So there's the Progressive app launching. This should not be allowed. This is a fundamental flaw in the way these apps are built. Now see here, it notices you should update. Now what it ought to do is it ought to say you must update. It should refuse to run until you update. It should detect that it's been modified, but it hasn't. All it's detected is it's an old version. So I can say no thanks, and I'm in. So now I should be able to steal that it steals the logs. And I don't know what all this nonsense is. All right, Windows users, that's old techniques. Now all I have to do is monitor the log. So I'm going to go here. I'm already on the, if I go on my other terminal, all right, looks like I don't have an S machine. I'm going to do ADB, all right, and I can do ADB logcat. There's the phone. Now all these things are going by. Now that's kind of a mess. Now notice, the Trojan code I put in had a label for just this reason. To make it easier to spot it in the log, I added the word Trojan here. So the word Trojan is going to be in the log entries that contain this. So I can take ADB logcat and I can pipe it for grep Trojan. All right, now it's going to sit there with no information until I hit the Trojan. Now I can use the app and I can log in. So it's going to be secret user, innocent user, top secret password, log in, and there you go. It steals the credentials and puts them in here, and it sends them up to Progressive where they notice those archives. None of this should happen. It should refuse to run. It should refuse to connect to Progressive. You should not be allowed to use a modified app, but they're stupid. They don't protect their app, so they let me use a modified app. This is the repackaging attack, which is going to affect iPhones starting this week. It's really bad. You should not be allowed to make fraudulent apps that look like the real thing, but do something evil, like steal your name and password. But we've been able to do that. And that's what I wanted to show you. And I think that's it. Yep, that's it. So, good. That's a real powerful attack, and we're going to do variations of this as you go ahead. But you can, almost every app is wide open to this, and there is no reason for it. Your app could check the hash or the certificate or something before it launches and refuse to run, but they just don't bother. Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you. I'm going to stop the recording.